All right, good morning, students. Today we are doing 1.5. We are dealing with exponential form with rational and radical exponential form. Rational and radical exponential form. So let's get started off with kind of definitions and examples. So rational exponents would be where you have your fractions. So rational is going to be your fractions. So let's say you have 7 to the 2/3. So you have 2/3 as your exponent. So your exponent is 2/3, and I'll explain what that means in a second. Now, radical form would be where you move that into its roots. So radical means you're going to have it in its roots. So let's take this one, for example. I can rewrite this as the 3rd root of 7 squared. Now it's the same number, 7, 2, and 3, 7, 2, and 3. But this is how you write it. When you have an exponent of 2/3, it's to the 2nd power, but rooted to the 3rd power. So it's the 3rd power root of 7 squared. So if we were to use just variables, x to the p over q, you have up here, the p is the power, and the q is the root. So if I rewrite that, I've got the root, q, and I've got the power, p. Fight the power. I'll take the power back. Whatever you want to do. So those are your two different ways to do this, rational exponents and radical root form. Now, one of the things to note is it's a good skill to know because on some calculators, it would be really difficult to write it this way. But if I know how to rewrite this in the radical form, then I can plug it into my calculator by doing 7 to the exponent of, what did I say, 2/3. And I'll get my answer. 3.65930.571. So I can get my answer for this, but to plug this in the calculator would be super difficult. But this, I could plug it into Desmos, and I can get an approximate answer. All right. Now, let's deal with this. Let's change a couple from the radical form to the exponential form. So starting in the radical form, starting in our root form, and let's change it to exponents. So we're going to have our number with the power over the root. So this is 7 to 2/3. This is our first example right there. Now look at this one. We don't have a power, and we apparently don't have a root. But if it's written like this with nothing here, what that means is it's squared, right? Don't forget that if there's nothing here, it's not a 1, it's a 2. So it's square rooted. So if that's it, if I have my power, it's going to be to the 1 power, so I have 5 to the exponent of 1/2. So this is a square root. Don't forget, that's a square root. Okay, now let's go the other direction. Let's go from the exponential to the radical. Hey, look, 1/2, that just means square root. So this is the square root of 6. Now you could put a 2 in here, that wouldn't be wrong. It would just be the same thing. A 2 in here is the same as written like this. All right, now let's check this one. So we have our main number, -2, and it's going to be rooted to the 4th, and that whole thing is going to be to the 3rd power. So just make sure you know where these numbers go, and that'll make today's assignment quite a bit easier for you. Speaking of today's assignment, let's get straight into it. So extra practice, we're on page 25. Extra practice, I'll do the odds, and you're going to do the evens. All right. find the indicated real nth root of a. So essentially I could rewrite this as the second root of 64. So the 2 would go here, but again, if it's a square root, I already know it's to the 2. So what times itself equals 64? Oh, 8 times 8 equals 64. So my answer is 8. 256, the fourth root, so I've got 4, 256. So what times what times what times what? What 4 times? 1, 2, 3, 4 equals 256. Well, let's start out small. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 16. So it's an even number, so how about 4? 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. 256. There it is. So the number that I multiply 4 times to get 256 is 4. All right. And now you can use a calculator to help you, but write down what you're doing in the calculator. Write this down so I know that you understand this means the fourth root of 256. All right, oh, we got 256 again. This time we have the 8th root. So what times itself? 8 times equals 256. Let's try 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sure enough, it's 2. So as you can see, I'm just guessing and checking. I'm just plugging in numbers and checking. So give that a go. All right, so evaluate this expression. Well, it's the same thing we were just doing. It's just the first step is written for us. So what times itself? 4 times equals 625. Well, it's a 5. So my guess, so it's probably 5. Since it's got a 5. And remember, I'm just guessing and checking. So let's do 5 4 times. So what? 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Sure enough, 625. So our answer is 5. Number 9. What times itself 3 times equals negative 216? Now let's keep in mind, in order to have a negative inside of a square root, it has to be an odd root. I cannot have an even number here, or else it's not a real number. I'll give you a quick example. If I were to say the square root of negative 16, well, I know the square root of 16 equals 4, right? That's easy. Square root of negative 16, is that negative 4? Well, let's check. Negative 4 times negative 4. Oh, wait a second. That equals a positive 16. This means it has to be times itself. So it can't be negative 4 times positive 4 because that wouldn't be squared, right? It has to be some number squared equals negative 16. It's impossible. You can never times a number by itself and get a negative number. So this is impossible. You can't have an even number here and a negative number here. It's not a real number. So if I have a negative here, the first thing I'm going to do is look and make sure that's odd. That is odd, so great. So it's going to be some negative number 3 times, let's try 6. So negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 6. Oh, look at that. Negative 216. So I have negative 6. What if I put negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 6? Oh, that worked too. I didn't need the parentheses. If I did negative 6 to the third power, actually that's going to still come up with negative 216. But if I did negative 6, I won't confuse you. Okay. There you go. So I got negative 6, because negative 6 times negative 6 times negative 6 equals negative 216. All right, number 11. Oh, look at this. So I have 6, 729, and then it's just 1. So I don't even need that. So what times itself 6 times gets us to 729? Well, since it's an odd number, I'm going to start off with a low odd number. So 6, let's do 6 threes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 729. There it is. And you see I'm starting off with pretty low numbers, right? Because as things grow exponentially, that exponential growth is quite fast, quite quick. All right, turning the page. Number 14. Rewrite the expression in a rational exponent form. So I have negative 8 to the 2/3. And all it wants me to do is rewrite. Oh, why did I do 14? Oh, geez. I was doing evens. Now I'm doing odds. Or odds, evens, whatever. Anyways, let's get back on track. So I have 15. And then I have the power over the square rooter, or the rooter. All right. So all you have to do is 13. Nice. Rewrite the expression in its radical form. So our divisor, or denominator, is this one. So it looks like that. And I don't even need this 2, so it could be, you could do this. Looks a little bit cleaner because the 2 and that, those are the same. All right, number 19, evaluate the expression. So it's easier for me to put it like this for my head. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what number times itself 5 times gets me to 32. Let's see, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So I know that the 5th root of 32 is 2 squared, so I get 4. 2 times 2 squared is 4. 21. Let's check. 343 to 2/3. So the bottom, the 3 goes in here, and I have 343, and then that's squared. So what times itself? 3 times is going to get us 343. Let's try. 3 doesn't quite get us there, right? 3 times 3 times 3. Oh, no, not even close. 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Let's try 7. 7 times 7 times 7. Hey, look at that. 343. So I have 7 squared, which is 49. All right. Oh, look at this. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go up here because I had talked about, back here I talked about if you have a negative square rooted, that's impossible. It's not a real number. I'm going to show you an example of that right here in number 20. So I have negative 64 with the square root of 2, 3. Well, that's an even number, and that's an odd number. There is nothing in the world I can multiply by itself to get me negative 64. If I did negative 8 times negative 8, I get a positive 64. So I cannot, there is no real number that I can multiply by itself to get negative 64. No real number I can do that. I'll give you a hint. There's one more of those in this section. No real number can get me there. If you figure out a real number that gets me there, let me know. I'll share it with the mathematical world. We'll be world famous because of your discovery. All right. So there's no real number. Let's go down to 23. Oh, look, I have another negative. Negative 2, 729 to the 6th and the 5th. Wait a second. That can't be possible. I can't have an even number and come up with a negative. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what it is. So this negative is outside of the 729. So this goes right here. So because this one is inside of the parentheses, I can't do it. This one is outside of the parentheses, so my final number is going to be negative, whatever it is. So what times itself 6 times gets me to 729. Did I do this one already? Let's try 3. 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So I have 3 to the 5th power. So I bring down my negative, I bring down my 5. So negative 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I get negative 243. All right. You don't have to do number 25. There you go. So your homework is to finish 1 through 24 and to have your notes on page 24. Finish 1 through 24 and have your notes on page 24. That's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Give me a call. Ask me on